Hey everyone, I'm talking to Olivia, and we were just talking about this such a mess. And the mess, of course, is Donald Trump's presidency and all the clowns that he has put in positions of influence. And we were just discussing, oh yeah, if Donald Trump, the president of the United States, does not trust his own intelligence because he does not trust Tulsi Gabbard, his director of national intelligence, the fact that I just said Tulsi Gabbard is our director of national intelligence made me throw up a little bit in my mouth. But nonetheless, she relies upon U.S. intelligence. And we found out earlier this week that Donald Trump threw her and U.S. intelligence under the bus twice. And so I asked Olivia if Donald Trump is not trusting or believing or listening to or reading his own intelligence, Olivia, whose intelligence is Donald Trump relying upon during what could be World War III between Israel and Iran?
I actually don't really know. Honestly, I think he's listening to the voices in his own head because that's who he tends to listen to is himself. And he's disregarded the intelligence community for years, right? I mean, he did this during the first term. You put the facts in front of him, and whatever facts he doesn't like, he sort of twists and distorts to facts that he agrees with. And so I don't know. I mean, my concern, as you saw, I was very public about this, was that we're going into this with someone who's completely disregarded what the intel community is telling him. We're going in blind. I'm wondering if the intended targets were really actually effective, which it looks like they weren't. I mean, when he was broadcasting over and over on social media what his plans were, which he tends to do, right? We talk about this. He always tells us what he's going to do. So it's not like he keeps things a secret. So while the military, conducted a successful operation, he was telling the world, I plan to do this, right? In the lead up to it. So, I mean, not really a covert operation when it comes to Donald Trump. And so I fully, reading the reporting that's happening about how they moved everything before the U.S. struck them. Of course they did. I mean, I don't
What?
want people to expect.
It's like God forbid if I say, Olivia, I'm gonna beat you up. I'm gonna beat up your dogs. I'm gonna bomb your house. I never would do, by the way. But hey, I might not. And you know what? Someone else is already bombing your house and beating up you and your dogs, and yeah, I might join them. In fact, I might join them in 2 weeks. You know those dogs. What are you gonna do with the dogs in your house and your safety? You're probably gonna.
Especially when that person has a history of following up on what the things that he says out loud, right? I mean, like there's a pattern of behavior that is real.
I mean, and I think that's what we have to like, folks. I know there's so much news that we just have to sit for a second and connect the dots, right? This could have all been avoided. Donald Trump, at least publicly, said that he was going to meet Iran for nuclear deals. Now we don't know, did Israel blow it up without telling, Trump in advance? Well, we also found out that Donald Trump in the United States, gave a green light to some missile sales the week before, so maybe they were made aware. Either way, it makes Donald Trump look super weak. So Israel strikes Iran, right? Israel strikes Iran, and then Trump runs on an America First program and says, "I'm not gonna, bomb anyone who bombs is weak. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden will lead this country into war. America First, non-interventionism." Then, as Olivia was saying, he says, "Tehran, you better evacuate. Tehran is the capital of Iran, 17 million." Then
Yeah.
he says, unconditional surrender for the Ayatollah. If any country is telling another country, you have to unconditionally surrender, I don't know. I don't care what that country is. That'd be like, oh crap, that's like almost a declaration of war. Then he says, give me 2 weeks, I'll make my decision in 2 weeks. And then, because people were calling him Taco and he was pissed off, the next day, United States joins Israel in its war, sends these bunker busters, sends about 14 bombs. Each bomb cost $500 million. So we spent $7 billion, $7 billion, right? Then it says mission success, amazing, successful. Then you see the photos, and then the sites aren't completely destroyed. The photo site you could see it's not completely destroyed.
Yeah.
And then, as Olivia was saying, if you telegraph to someone you're going to beat them up or kill them or assassinate them or plan to destroy their nuclear facilities, they'll probably say, let me plan. And so I have this like joke that it's probably like this one Iranian farmer with the world's slowest tractor moving their uranium away like, to like somewhere else.
It
And
would
we don't
be
even
the
know.
smart strategic thing to do, though. It would be totally, that would be the way to do it.
I mean, and so this is what happened, folks. And now Iran is alleging that the uranium, the enriched uranium, well, now they're saying it didn't get they didn't strike it. And then U.S. Cape Cod a couple of days ago, Hexen and others like, yeah, we didn't destroy it. And now they're saying, no, no, we did destroy it. And then this is where we are right now. We'll talk about, Trump's just absurd posts the last couple of days. There's just so many. But Olivia, from a national security perspective and just from a common sense perspective, right? Um, this entire last 12 days has it made the world safer? Because let me tell you, if I'm Iran, Turkey, Iraq, if I'm in that region, you know what I'm doing in the next 10 years? I'm rushing towards a nuclear weapon.
Absolutely. 100%. I completely agree with you. I mean, I think what we did was, if you're looking at this, you're like, screw it. We're going all in. And by the way, bombing I mean, people have said this, bombing these sites, and maybe if you actually got the enriched uranium, which they didn't, by the way, I'm 95% confident that they didn't accomplish what they're saying they did. And it's not because of that. It's because I do believe that it wasn't there. And I mean, it's just ridiculous. But I will say this. I think that what they have done is that, look, the knowledge doesn't go away, right? You don't bond the knowledge away of the program. It's still there. And so I think the thing to think about is, how do these countries feel now in the region? And there's a lot of people out there saying, well, Iran is weak right now. And it was the right thing for Trump to do it. I mean, trust me, I had never Trumpers and anti-MAGA. You should look at my social media. Some of them, like, they were attacking me left and right and being like, what the hell's wrong with you? This is the best decision right now for the moment. You're wrong on this. You're completely clueless globally. And I was like, all right, you know what? I'm going to have my little popcorn and palomitas and watch this play out, because I'm going to sit back and watch how this continues. And it's going to continue to develop. And Iran plays a long game. I keep
Yeah,
reminding
there you go.
people about that. And Trump doesn't understand strategy or the long game, because he is about immediate gratification. And one thing I wanted to mention to people, did you see there was New York Times reporting? Mark Mazzetti is a really great reporter. There's a whole group of them on how Trump made the decision to do this.
Yeah. Yes. Please tell everyone.
And
We've talked about this before
when
on
I
Left Hook,
read
but
this,
people need to
yes,
know.
when I read this, I was like, this is exactly what I was picturing when I heard the news that he had launched these military strikes on Iran. And basically, I mean, it's about ego. That's really what it came down to, because he was watching what Israel was doing and he was glorifying them. And he's like, oh man, look at this military operation. And what I think actually happened was that Trump's narcissistic personality was like, I need in. I
Yeah.
need in
He
on the
said it. Yeah,
spotlight.
allegedly said it's playing well.
Yes. Yeah. That is a quote that was reported. And I don't doubt it, because that is how he behaves in meetings, especially, whatever it is, whatever crisis it is, whether it's COVID, foreign policy, I mean, you name it. I've been there for a lot of these discussions in the Situation Room, and I could totally see that happening in the Oval Office, where he says this and he's starting to get a little annoyed, and he's like, I want in on this. I need to be part of the grand scale show. And I just think when you have that kind of personality engaging in such complicated foreign policy right now, globally, I don't, I love these people that have been sending messages being like, you're completely wrong on this one. I know these personalities. I know the long term of what this looks like. And as much as it may have made a dent now, the longer strategic picture, I think we're in trouble, especially when it comes to someone like Trump, because you and I both know he can't stick to a plan.
Nope.
So they're
Look
going
at the
to get
last few
people
days.
around him. Yeah.
Can't even stick to the message, folks. You can't even stick to the same messaging. Look. There's just so much. Last 2 days. All right. JD Vance gets sent out and gives one of the dumbest quotes I've ever heard. Several of them, but one of them was, "We're not at war with Iran. We're at war with Iran's nuclear facility," which is like me saying we're not at war with Afghanistan. We're just at war with Afghanistan's caves. And then he says, "Don't worry, this isn't a regime change." And then even Pete Hegseth said, "Not a regime change." A few hours later, that same day, Donald Trump says, "MAGA." regime change, right? He throws JD Vance under the bus. He throws Hexa under the bus, right? Marco Rubio, just the world's just most pathetic reek, son of immigrants who should know better, from Florida. And now they have did you hear about that? Essentially that detention facility slash gulag they're making in Florida,
Yeah.
surrounded by shark. Yeah, yeah, and then he comes out on Face the Nation yesterday and says, "Who needs intelligence? We're just going off of which confirms what
The
Olivia is
vibes.
saying, the New York Times article, that it's just vibes, and that Donald Trump saw it on Fox, and he saw the cheerleaders on Fox, he saw the warmongers on Fox,
Yes.
and he goes, "Oh, it's playing well on Fox." And then some of these people like Hexeth, Rubio, and even JD Vance allegedly were like, "I think this is a bad idea. You shouldn't do this." But he was looking at Fox, doesn't listen to his own staff, right? Listen to Laura Loomer twice, and based on Laura Loomer, the friggin' nut, who's the craziest conspiracy theorist, who's so crazy that even Marjorie Taylor Greene is like, she's racist. He listened to her folks over his own national security in, reassigning some people based off of Signalgate, but I digress. So he watches Fox. And some people are saying in that New York Times article, and it must have been Hexeth and Rubio and a few others, gosh, I wish Tucker Carlson was still on Fox because he would have gotten another perspective. This is what we're basing potential World War III on, folks. People have already died in Iran, in Israel. These are civilians who have already died. The temperature has risen, right? High alert. And Olivia is saying there might be now nuclear proliferation. Gas prices have gone up, and he did it off of vibes. Olivia, and another thing I want to say is, and I'm so happy. I know some of the personalities you're talking about, some of the rhinos, never Trumpers, some of the neocon hawks, they got their war boners on for Iran. And guess what?
Oh boy, did they.
They
They
were
came after me, Waj. Tell them. I'll tell you what. They were not happy with me. I got a lot of texts.
well, because you were in the first Trump administration, you're a former Republican, and they could see like, oh, you're betraying us. This is what we've always wanted. But fast forward I saw you, and I'm like, man, Olivia, good for her, because I could imagine the pressure you're in because you come from that world. I'm so glad we're talking about this. I'm glad you're admitting it. But just look at a couple of days, folks. Who was right? Olivia was right, and all those people with their war boner texts and tweets and blue sky posts.
We're
That was like milk and sun. Those
I just,
tweets.
I just, and look, I mean, did it hurt a little bit? I mean, because it's hard and, you're kind of in the trenches and you've been standing up to this person for a while and then it fractures, right? The circle fractures. And you know what? It's okay. I'm fine with it because I have sat in enough crisis rooms, situation rooms. I was there for the original planning of the Iraq War. I was there. I was Ambassador Bremer's aide. I've deployed to Baghdad. I saw intel failures. I saw what we believed was true. Then later on, we find out it's not true. I've seen the aftermath of war and what happens. I've seen the aftermath of Afghanistan. I have lived this so many times firsthand. And yeah, look, I'm going to admit it. I used to be a war hawk too. I will own that. But I think over time, when you actually live this firsthand and you see policy decisions, diplomacy, and all of the impacts, and what does it lead to, right? Longstanding, protracted conflicts that don't actually resolve anything. They don't bring peace. They bring hurt and pain, loss of life, death. I mean, so you really start to take a step back and you're like, okay, is this really deterrence? Or is this just fueling complete instability and we're just enabling a situation? And by the way, you don't get regime change by going in and bombing externally. We've shown that. History has proven that over time. Regime change comes from internally. We've seen it, right? And I feel like I'm on my soapbox by myself here as a,
No, no.
recovering war hawk conservative, but I think it's important to acknowledge when you grow and you evolve because of real life experience and viewing it. And yeah. Do I look
No,
back on that
can I
truth
do this,
and see
Olivia?
that?
This is why I appreciate you, and I'm not saying this to make you feel better, but let me give you my perspective. You say you're a recovering war hawk and neoconservative. I was a 21-year-old senior at UC Berkeley when the war on terror happened, and I had a different perspective as a Muslim, as a person of color. I saw what had happened domestically and against our communities, and I was marching against the war because it's the world's worst. I told you so. I predicted, like so many others, that this would happen, that the war would fail, that I didn't trust the intelligence. The intelligence later, at least folks, at least George W. Bush and the neocons at least made like a theater. At least they tried to sell the war. Donald Trump doesn't even try. He just goes off of vibes, right? And then we said, listen, with the creation of DHS and ICE and Patriot Act, what people don't realize, and that time was wild, folks. If you lived through that time, America
Yeah,
wanted blood.
it
I
was.
said, in this time of rage and anger and revenge, we're going to voluntarily give up our civil liberties for the feeling of safety. But the long tail of this is that knowing just being a student of history and being Muslim and knowing those folks, they will not greet us as liberators. They will not be garlands, right? There'll be more instability. And in Iraq, folks, what happened? ISIS rose. In Afghanistan,
Awful.
who is in power right now, folks? Taliban, right? U.S. soldiers coming back in caskets, right? The all this money being spent, people realizing the lies. So all that American might and rah rah rah. What happened, folks? Absolute chaos and disaster. And then Barack Obama, when he was elected, in part because of the failure of the war on terror, and the economic crisis, he had to go give an address in Egypt to literally apologize, essentially, to the world and repair, right? So it's not even just we've seen this in the past, Olivia. We've seen this in our lifetimes. And what I appreciate about you is what I've been saying for 23 years is listen, people make mistakes. I just want people to own up to it and say, you know what, this is what I thought I was wrong. But you know, and I know, Olivia, all of those people have failed up and they failed up in life, all the war hawks. And instead of saying, you know what, I was wrong, this is why I was wrong, instead of having some humility, instead of having some wisdom, instead of saying, you know what, I saw what happened. You know them, Olivia. They've never apologized. David Frum has his war boner on right now. David Frum is the one who coined Axis of Evil, us versus them. And so I appreciate you doing it because I see that entire circle. We don't need to name any more names. And I'm like, you've learned nothing. You've learned nothing from the past 25 years. And now there's a new generation that you're perfectly willing to drag into this war because of your own ideology or your own vibes or your own beliefs. So I just want to say to everyone watching, the 1,000 people watching, I appreciate Olivia. I appreciate people who can learn from their mistakes. And I can imagine, again, this is the first time Olivia and I are talking. Well, we had a text before. I won't quote. I think you quote you like, this is really effed up. And I'm like, if Olivia saying that 4 or 5 days ago, that's true. But I just want to say that for people watching, I appreciate you sticking true to your guts, especially in the past week. Look, and the last week has proven you right. Are we safer now, Olivia? You
No,
tell me.
no. And I think what is really disturbing is also, I mean, here's the other thing that really bothered me, that all of a sudden, all of these people decided that Trump in this circle of people was trustworthy.
All of a sudden.
How? Like, with everything that we have seen in the past decade of Trumpisms right now, right? Why would all of a sudden would we choose to trust what they're telling us and what they're saying, which is horrible, by the way. Horrible in international conflict to have leadership that we are sort of like, well, I don't know. How do I believe that what he's saying is true? How do I believe any of these people when they're telling the truth or not? I mean, it's just, I'm like, so you just thought that because today we bombed Iran and you think that Iran is weak right now and it's a good opportunity to
There
challenge them, you have now decided that you can trust this entire circle to make decisions, that you can trust them in the aftermath, that you can trust them for the longer term because it's going to be a longer term thing. And people were mad at me because they were like, you're calling it a war. It was a military strike. I was like, oh my God, we're hemisphere people. Like, we're at conflict with Iran now. We've involved ourselves in it and they are not going to forget. And neither is the region. And the whole region is probably sitting there going, okay, how does this play out? And good to know that they just decided that unilaterally they're going to bomb Iran. Gives no warning. Trump does this, doesn't tell Congress. Oh, wait, he briefed a couple of the Republicans.
Yep.
A few of them, right? Doesn't actually consult them on this, on a pretty major thing of what they're going to do. And so it just makes me question the entire thing because I'm like, the way he went about this worries me as well for the future. Because once again, there are no rules when it comes to this administration and what they're doing.
With the way he's going about it right now, folks, this is real time. Like this, all
Yes.
of it. The beginning, the middle, it's not hasn't ended. I mean, just today, he dropped the F bomb because his alleged ceasefire and his imposed 12-day war and his, thank you for your attention. Guess what? Israel and Iran kind of violated the ceasefire, and now he dropped the F bomb. I don't know if you saw the F bomb on live
I
TV.
did.
And yeah, your response to that?
Real leadership there on the world stage.
Yeah,
And you know what?
real.
That's more like Donald Trump and his tantrum, right?
Mm.
Because he's like, now it's their problem again. That's basically what that was. It was like, they're the ones screwing up. That's their problem. I'm not in the middle of it now. Well, yeah, you are, and you got played. That's the other part of this, right? You
'Cause I'm
got
not
played.
happy. I'm not happy. They fired Israel fired Iran right after making the deal. Both those countries, Israel and Iran. And I'm just like, you look weak, you look incompetent, you look like a fool. Why should I trust you? Here's a question, Olivia. Why should I trust this administration right now? Why should I trust what JD Vance, Marco Rubio, and Pete Hegseth say when Donald Trump literally throws them under the bus and contradicts them just hours later? But if I'm on an ally, all right, and we've already talked about Signalgate, why should I trust the United States right now?
No. I mean, you have no idea what they're going to do with the intelligence, right? So I'm sure their partners don't actually share the intel. So when you ask where they got the intel, well, I don't know, actually. I don't know because I don't know that the UK, I don't know that trusted partners, like, I don't know that Five Eyes, all of those people would actually share real critical intelligence with the United States, given the history of how this team handles it, right? Never mind the documents that ended up in Mar-a-Lago near the toilet. So, like, all of that combined, it just, and I hate to say it, Watch, it pains me because I worked in national security for so long and in public service. And I will own the fact that I have a tendency to be like, to believe in our country's leadership, to believe in rank and order, to believe in government institutions, right? I mean, that is what I focused on. So it sucks to say, no, you can't trust these people, but they've given us no reason to. Their pattern of behavior repeatedly has showed us that, one, not only are they incompetent, they throw each other under the bus. None of them are on the same page half the time. And also, no one can control Trump.
Yep.
That's the bottom line, right? Nobody, and if he's watching Fox News, I mean, we've seen this, where in the past, people have gone on Fox News to talk to him. That's how people communicate with Trump. If they can't get to him, they go on Fox News and talk to him on TV. That's true.
And then Tulsi, what about Tulsi? Well, Tulsi better look for a job because Tulsi got thrown under the bus.
Yeah.
Tulsi 90 days ago said Iran does not have a nuclear weapon. This is very important, folks. Iran, the leadership, we'll all criticize it, right? The whole leadership of the entire region, Netanyahu, Saudi Arabia, MBS, the Gulf states. All right. Yes, yes, yes. All terrible and repressive, but Iran does not have a nuclear weapon. Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, said so 90 days ago. The entire international community said that it is not close to having a nuclear weapon. In fact, it was even less close to having it when the Obama administration did the U.S.-Iran deal, which a lot of hawks opposed, but even General Mattis opposed that. But then when it was actually done, General Mattis, who was in the first administration, as you know, Olivia, said,
Yep.
this is a good deal. And who blew it up? You want to tell them who blew up the U.S.-Iran deal that actually de-escalated the situation on vibes and by taking advice from Netanyahu?
Yes. I mean, it was Donald Trump. And he pulled us out of the JCPOA. And so here we are. And by the way, from everything that we know, Iran was adhering to the agreement, right? This has been reported. I mean, that they were abiding by it. So the ones that didn't abide by it were us when we bailed. And so now here we are. But I mean, look, Trump has been wanting to bomb Iran for many, many years. I think, this is an obsession of his. I think it sounds like he had already made up his mind anyway. So the 2 weeks was just a distraction. But I think it's also, what worries me is that I worry that it's a distraction from other things happening.
Right.
Right. I mean, what is happening with Ukraine? What's happening here domestically? Oh, and by the way, now that we're worried about cyber attacks here, sleeper cells here, with Iran retaliating domestically here, I'd like to know what the plan is for, now they're pulling FBI agents off who are out there, deployed throughout the country. What are they going to do with like FBI, ICE? Are we going to focus on domestic terrorism threats, foreign terrorism threats here domestically? Or are we going to continue to focus on the immigration aids? Like how is the Department of Homeland Security going to manage all of these missions when currently we have masked ICE agents running around the country, arresting people, destroying trust in law enforcement, destroying any public trust in forces that actually we want to have on our side, vigilant, making sure to keep the American people safe. I mean, so I'm just trying to figure out how this all plays out in a positive manner for our homeland right now. I don't,
It does.
I mean,
That's what people don't realize. It's easy to start wars, hard to finish them, and also especially hard in the Middle East. I give you the past 23 years and the failed war on terror, and I also give you the failed leadership of Donald Trump, where people don't trust us, allies don't trust us. You have Pete Hegseth using Signal, unsecure apps. God forbid if there is a plan to join. We kind of have joined Israel in this war with Iran, but suppose there's a straight up war, then do you trust Pete Hegseth if you're an ally, if you're the UK, if you're Canada, the same dude who uses Signal in a dirty line in his office and also invites his family members, and the fact that someone invited, Jeffrey Goldberg, maybe they'll invite Olivia by mistake, right? And then also the fact that our countering violent extremism head is now 22-year-old Thomas Fugate, ex-gardener and ex-grocery store assistant. What Olivia said was right. I said the three winners of this will be Benjamin Netanyahu. He wins. This has been
yes.
his dream for 3 decades. He's been lying, lying, lying about it. We just found out reporting that he already made the decision last year, and he's probably waiting for Trump to be elected, and he dog walked Trump. So Netanyahu wins. He's a war criminal, and he continues his genocide in Gaza. But mainly, he doesn't care about Israel. He doesn't care about the region. He cares about staying in power because, much like Trump, the second he's away from power, he will most likely be held accountable for many criminal allegations. He'll be in jail. So he needs perpetual war, right? So this is great for Netanyahu and extremists like Ben Gvir and Smotrich, who make up the increasingly extreme Israeli war cabinet now, to not just wipe out Palestinians, but then engage in regime changes and everything they want. This helps the military industrial complex get a lot more money, and this helps violent extremism, specifically violent extremists of all stripes, Olivia, because yes,
Oh,
Hezbollah's
yeah.
weakened all around, Hamas, ISIS, Al Qaeda, right, white supremacists, Jewish extremists, right? Because if you think about it, this is going to spill over. It's been spilling over for the past year and a half, folks. We've seen a spike in anti-Semitism, anti-Arab violence, and Islamophobia, and you've seen white supremacists and anti-Semites and Islamophobes all frothing at the mouth. So imagine what this is going to do to actual groups that can use it for recruitment. Am I wrong about this, Olivia?
Oh, no. I mean, this is how recruitment happens, and this is how radicalization happens with grievances and watching patterns that are taking place. And so imagine the the combination of all of these groups, threats, feelings coming together. And I'm just wondering how we're going to manage that with the 22-year-old sitting at DHS and Sebastian Gorka there. And
Oh
I
yeah, and
just,
Sebastian Gorka. Thank you, thank you.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's who the senior director for counterterrorism right now. Do you think I have confidence in that individual right now for what's coming? I mean, I
Do
can
you have
only imagine
confidence in Prakash Patel?
how's that coordination going right now? So I'm curious to see how this is going to play out. And the other thing is, by the way, I think like a lot of people aren't talking about it is like, okay, so Iran is saying, fine, we're going to retaliate. There's going to be potential economic consequences as well, right? They just voted to close the strait. And so,
Straight up almost. Yep.
right, Strait of Hormuz. And so I'm just wondering, okay, so who do we need to kind of help out in that? Are we going to ask China? So Marco Rubio is waiting to figure out, is he waiting for the phone call from China? Is he waiting by the phone? I've got a bat phone back here. Hey, Marco, here we go. Keep this red phone to remind me of my former job.
Oh,
He's
wow,
there,
that's
and he's
all.
like, one day they're going to call me. They're going to call me. And I'm like, why would they? When, by the way, hey, tariffs, we're in a trade war with them. Why would they help us right now? So,
That's I mean, yeah, and he did a tweet. Wasn't there a post about China asking China for help? Yeah. Why? Why? What? China's like, all right, we'll take the heat and we'll let you flounder. And gas prices have gone up, folks. Today, egg prices are already up. There's also a trade war, and also this America First presidency. It's all bullshit, but nonetheless, we should talk about this. His base, though, there's a part of his base, Olivia, which I've been telling people, and because I'm a masochist and I follow MAGA. Um, there's a part of his base that takes him literally and seriously on America First, right? For them, America First, in addition to the nationalism and the racism, is also non-interventionism. America's not the policeman of the world. We spend all that money instead of the military-industrial complex on Americans at home. No new wars. We're done with that, right? That base is pissed off. I don't know if you heard yesterday, Marjorie Taylor Greene and Steve Bannon, Tucker Carlson, but silent. But before that, Thomas Massey, folks, they are coming out and saying they're against this. Why are we, the United States, they're saying, at war on behalf of Israel, right? And furthermore, there's a part of MAGA, much like a lot of the youth across the board, that has been radicalized in real time in the past year and a half, watching this genocide stream onto their phone, and they're like, "Why are we helping Israel?" And now they're like, "Why are we supporting Israel's war?" And so now you're seeing this little shift, this break in MAGA. But I'm really curious, what do you make of this break? Because I think, people say everyone will fall in line. Yes, the Fox fell in line, the Rhinos fell in line, Charlie Kirk fell in line, but this faction did not fall in line, Olivia, and they're pissed. And the YouGov poll came out 2 days ago, which is a shocking poll because you and I have been around for a while. You never get this much a consensus in America. 85% of Americans said they're against the war. Only 5%
Yes,
they're
I saw
for
that.
the war.
And
Have we ever seen
that
that before?
actually, that to me was significant, right? I mean, that goes to show that the consensus across America right now is that they don't want the US involved in a war. And so I think, here I am, like saying, I think Marjorie Taylor Greene and these people, what they're saying is they did run an entire campaign saying bring them home, right? They complained they were beating up on Biden the entire time, saying, oh, if this were happening, this wouldn't happen if I were president because there wouldn't be war. And if I would be strong and there would not be bombing. I mean, he ran the entire time taking pot shots at the Biden administration and others, saying that it wouldn't happen under him. And so what has he done? He's completely flipped on it. And so I think what you're seeing there is this is a group of people who's like, wait a second. They're looking around and they're saying, we just told a bunch of families that we're not going to get involved in war. We're focused on everything that's America. And now we're involving ourselves in an international conflict. And look, do I think they'll fall in line? Yes. Right. I mean, they will. They're going to figure out how to spin this. And I actually think that's already starting to happen. I actually think that's why he came out and dropped the F-bomb, because he's trying to project to that group of people and his
Yep.
supporters, which is what he does. It's not me. It's them. It's, these crazy leaders over there. I mean, I tried to take care of it. I was trying to prevent nukes. I was trying to keep you safe. That's what he's doing right now. He's already starting to lay the groundwork. And he's going to try. So you know who it reminds me of? It reminds me of Putin. It reminds me
Yeah.
of dictators. That's what I'm seeing in terms of the patterns here with him, is that he's like, oh, it's not my problem. No, it was them. It was them. Well, no. I had a peace agreement, but they're the ones that are breaching it. And I'm like, dude, they were never at the table with you. They were using you.
They dog walked you. BB dog. It reminds me of three people. The three people: Trump, Putin, Bibi, right? That's those three, right? And if those three, you're talking about regime change, if you do a regime change on those three, figuratively, folks, I'm just throwing it out. I'm just not saying do a literal MAGA, calm down. I'm not saying literally, but if those three
Yeah.
were to be impeached or removed, the world immediately would be a safer place. And Lev is joining us. Lev says, I know all three. Lev said hi to you, Olivia. Who would have thought I've been talking to Lev and Olivia 10 years ago? Who would have thought that I would have agreed with it making me throw up that I agreed with Marjorie Taylor Greene and Tucker Carlson yesterday, folks? I want to throw up in my mouth.
I have to tell you, I was sitting there and I was thinking to myself, I was like, oh, I'm sure that a lot of these people that are mad at me for not agreeing are sitting there going like, how does Olivia feel being in the same camp as these individuals right now? And I was like, well, you got to stay true to yourself, right? And I'm calling it for what it is. Everyone
And you're
is
going to be on the
viewing it
right
from their
side.
own.
You're on the right side of history. You're calling it for what it is, and you're going to be on the right side of history, and take it from a person who was called terrorist and this and that and joined thousands of people against the war on terror. It was the world's worst. I told you so. But in the long run, we were right, even though so many people were destroyed. What we want to do now is avoid. We want to
That
avoid what we've seen in our lifetime. We want to avoid the FUBAR cluster F of one of the worst strategic decisions that America made in the war on terror. So that's why we're so vocal, because we want to avoid it. We have seen it. We are living it, folks. Not that we have lived it. We are living it. Generations are still living it. Taliban is back in control in Afghanistan, right? Iraq is trying to rebuild, right? Friggin' you got Yemen in a civil war. You got Libya with two governments, right? You have MBS in power in Saudi Arabia. He's modernizing, but he's crushing dissent. So this is all still happening, right? This is the tail end of of the war on terror. And speaking about the tail end, you mentioned it a lot. What's going to be the tail end of this? Because Matt Desweiton also said Iran plays the long game.
Yeah.
Iran is not suicidal. It is aggressive, but it's not suicidal. It is smart. It does not have a nuclear weapon. It knows that U.S. has a nuclear weapon. It knows Israel has a nuclear weapon. They're not interested in being martyrs and destroying themselves. They play the long game, and they play through asymmetrical warfare. So how will Iran, suppose this does end, I hope, in the next week. I don't think it's going to end. And that's what you're talking about.
So that's
Talk to us about
exactly
the
it.
long.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. When people were like, "Oh, we're not at war," I was like, you don't get it. You got to take a step back and think about what is going to come down the pipeline in the future. Like, okay, so they did this. They launched those strikes. A lot of people were like, "Oh, well, that was symbolic. They didn't really want to stir the pot, and they were going to retreat a little bit." Yeah, I actually agree with that. They were like, "Okay, here we go, tit for tat. We're gonna strike. We're gonna do it in a way. We're gonna work with Qatar, and we're gonna tell them because we're not gonna engage Qatar and the people there, right?" And they even put out a statement saying, talking about the wonderful people of Qatar, and like they were very deliberate about how they did it, right? How Iran did this, and they struck the base where Trump spoke, which wasn't lost on people, right? I mean, they were very calculated in what they did. I, am I worried about cyber attacks going forward? Yes. I tell people make sure your cyber posture is strong. Like, there's likely to be retaliation. They may even obfuscate it that they may not even acknowledge that it's them. They may be going through proxies. I mean, there's all these dynamics that are going to happen. But what I would say is that I'm actually worried about what's to come
Mm.
in the next months, year or so, because that's what we mean when they play the long game. So, like, I worry about what potential things they're going to do later on down the road, right? And I think they're right. I mean, I think they're gonna take a pause. They'll continue to engage with Israel, right? Because they don't want to look weak and they want to take action here. But my concern is that when we're least expecting it, that's when they're going to bomb Bahrain, or that's when they're going to bomb another location. I mean, that's what they've done in the past. And so and I'm not saying that Bahrain is going to be the target, but what I'm saying is I'm using that as an example, right? Of how that's likely to happen, and or sleeper cells or proxies or anything like that. And so I think that's when I say, yeah, we are at conflict with them. And we went in and they are not going to forget this.
But
But
but you know, but also, folks, the reason why Iran coordinated with Qatar and sent those strikes to U.S. airbase was them essentially telling America, "All right, you want to escalate this?
yeah,
Your largest base, America, is in Qatar, which is in striking distance, and there's 40,000 U.S. soldiers in the Middle East. So we can't destroy you. We know we can't destroy you. You're a nuclear power, but we can significantly damage and/or threaten your armed forces and your bases." Which is something that Donald Trump should have thought about. Because what I was saying was, okay, if I'm Iran and I want to strike back, I'll just go after the Qatar base. I'll just go after the U.S. security soldiers. So all of our soldiers, folks, and even U.S. tourists have a target on their back, right? Because the
yes.
war is the battlefield. War is the battlefield is now the entire world, and there's asymmetrical warfare. So that's the long end, and also the scariest part of the long end is like we were talking about the race to nuclear weapons. Because look, North Korea has a nuclear weapon. What did Donald Trump do? Exchange love letters with Kim Jong un. Israel has a nuclear weapon. Donald Trump joins Israel and lets Israel, just like Biden did, get a pass to what it's doing in Gaza, right? In Lebanon and everywhere else, right? So if I'm sitting there and I'm Turkey and I'm Lebanon and I'm Qatar and I'm Iran, I'm like, my goal is to get a nuclear weapon. That's my goal, which is my long-term tail end. The world is less safe. The world is less safe.
Yeah. And, actually, now that you bring that up, that begs the question because I am old enough to remember that when Trump took office at the very beginning, there was this whole operation, by the way, of planning that was happening about North Korea. And I'm just watching this replay again. So I'm like, okay, so Trump, if it really is about nukes, is your plan to bomb North Korea next? Is that
No one's asking this. No one's asking this.
because I'm asking that because we did so many counter war planning and all this stuff was happening. First of all, I was like, why is DHS focusing on that? We're like, we're supposed to be focused on Homeland. Okay. But anyways, but there was all this planning of happening about like, what if they were going to use nukes, or what if they were going to bomb, and what if they were going to do? And so I just think that's interesting because that was the focus back then, right? And then he writes these love letters, and then he becomes besties with him. And so I'm just curious, like, are we going, what's the plan here then if we're really like anti-nuke focused, if that was really, really the core of the agenda, which I was thinking about the last couple of days, right? I was like, is this really it? But I don't think that it was.
Yeah. Well, real quick, do you want Lev to come on in, Olivia? I want to
Yeah.
honor you as a guest. Lev, you want to join real quick? Let's bring Lev in if I can. Lev, and I want to ask you a question before Lev comes in, if he comes in. Uh, Real quick, what should Democrats be doing? Because I'm saying, it'd be really nice if we had an anti-war party right now. And you said, did you see Jeffrey's the pathetic response to when they asked him about, oh, did you see what Ro Khanna said? He goes, I haven't gotten time to it yet. We're trying to hold Trump responsible, right? Uh, oh, hey, Lev, how's it going?
Hey
Well,
guys.
hey,
Hey Olivia.
let Olivia answer this real quick because I want to ask her about the Dems and what they can be doing. Because someone talked to me yesterday and said there's a wide open lane. There's a wide open anti-war lane right now, and Dems, such as the Dem leadership of Schumer and Jeffries, are not taking it. But I ask you, Olivia.
I've been kind of wondering that in the past couple of days. I mean, why aren't they nailing him on this? Why aren't they like talking about the fact that he didn't ask for the people's input on whether we were going to get dragged into this conflict by going through their elected representatives, is what I mean, right? He didn't go to Congress. He didn't consult them. He went around them. And also, he completely ran on an anti-war platform. So play his clips back at him. So like, I don't understand. It's not that hard. And what I think it is, though, is I think that it's fear of trying to figure out where maybe the moderates are in the party versus the more like progressive arm of the party. But at some point, you've got to stand for something.
That's
So
right.
I don't, I guess I'm trying to figure out like, why can't they decide on one cohesive message? Because we know that the right does that, right? I mean, we'll see it. We'll see it play out.
And Jeffries had a chance yesterday, and when he was asked about Ro Khanna and AOC and Massey and these other folks have brought up, this resolution, he literally said, "I haven't gone around to it, folks." What type of leadership is that? And we're seeing cracks develop in MAGA. Lev has been talking about it. I've been seeing these cracks develop yesterday. But Lev, for those who don't know, I'm talking to Lev Parnas and Olivia Troye, folks. This is where we're at. This is 2025.
I
The
know.
world comes full circle. Lev was, a campaign operative for Donald Trump. Has split from MAGA, much like Olivia. Olivia split in the first administration because she's like, well, her job was to do national security. She goes, I can't do this. Part and parcel of the MAGA movement, knows it really well. Lev, your take on this current moment, specifically right now with Donald Trump, in my eyes, floundering as the world might be burning due to a potential World War III.
Thank you for having me, Wajid, and hi Olivia. It's been a while.
Hi, Lev. I know.
It's and you guys are doing great work, and as I say, right now Substack. Thank God for Substack. Independent journalism is able to get the truth out because the media is spinning, and I agree with what Olivia said. What you guys were just talking about when it comes to the Democratic leadership, there is none right now. That's one of the biggest problems because right now is the moment when it's time to act with the cracks. Because trust me, I mean, not only was I in MAGA, I was one of the top leaders of MAGA, and I'm seeing, speaking, and I have still a lot of, contacts in that world with the stuff that I'm hearing and the division and the fighting and the stuff that there's no going back because, so even if you see it in the media where they're spinning, like with Elon, supposedly there was peace, there is no peace. There is no going back in some of these things, and you see it going. And so right now is the time. And that's why everybody should put pressure on their congressmen, senators, Jeffries. Somebody got to take up the, and it's not going to be Schumer. It's not going to be these guys. It has to be somebody fresh. It has to be somebody, we need like a Bashir's from Kentucky, we need somebody like,
Great.
Gavin Newsom, yeah, but Trump targeted him. Trump's doing to Newsom what he did to Biden. I remembered. I was right there. He was scared of Biden, and for some reason, Trump is scared of Newsom right now, and that's why Trump right now is going after Los Angeles. Think about it, guys. With all of this craziness going on, we still have the National Guard in Los Angeles. We don't have protests. There's nothing going on in Los Angeles, but we have the National Guard. There's still going after our people using ICE, using his immigration policy, because it goes farther than that. Because this is part of people like I know, like Stephen Miller, people like Russell Vole, people that put Project 2025 together and that are using Trump as basically the figurine, because he has no clue about all of these policies that they're putting in front of him and they're pushing him doing. And this is part of it, because right here, guys, Vladimir Putin is pulling the strings, and Trump is his puppet, and Bibi Netanyahu is the joker in this whole thing that they can't control, and that's why this thing is the way it's playing out. And I know all three very well, and I could tell you.
Well, Lev. Okay, so let's bring in the Putin angle, right? So if you make the allegation that it's Putin being the mastermind right now, and Putin is benefiting from this, some people might ask, well, okay, how does Putin benefit from the fact that its ally Iran is being, might have a regime change, and as we know, it's also Syria. So it weakens Putin, and I could see where you could say where Netanyahu is the joker in this, because the reporting came out that last year, Netanyahu's been planning this for a year, and they just used a pretext and used Donald Trump as to dog walk him. But what's Putin's end game in this?
So if this was playing out and this was not orchestrated, if this was not a show put on, then yes, you're right. The Putin wouldn't take the risks involved. But you gotta understand who Putin is, and Olivia knows very well. This guy is pure KGB, pure mental mind manipulation. He plays with guys like Donald Trump. He has them for breakfast. So what Putin's end game to this is Ukraine, Eastern Europe. He's already making comments that he wants to go into the Baltics and Poland. Just the media is not reporting on it because we're focusing.
There was that speech in CNN reported the speech in Russia that what Lev is saying is that Russia gets Poland, Russia gets the Baltics, United States gets Greenland and Canada.
Thank you so much. I mean, nobody's talking about it. God bless you. I mean, this is what I'm saying to you. There's why Putin is pulling the strings. So Iran is an axis of Russia. Iran, they have a relationship, where first of all, they do a lot of their dirty work, their terrorism acts and stuff like that. Second of all, the jihad missiles that that they supply Russia with in their war with Ukraine. Third of all, they help them with their shadow oil fleets that Russia goes all around, to divert our sanctions. Then they also help them with the Central American narco money, the shadow money that's being funneled from the narcos to be able to, and Olivia knows, to use to be able to fund all of these terrorist acts and fund all of these wars and that were going on. So Iran is very close to Russia, but Iran also listens to Russia because Russia's like, Putin is the father, and they, with their relationship, the way they have it going on. So this is what played out from what my sources told. And if you go to my Substack and you take a look at the past 72 hours, I've been ahead of the media at least 4 or 5 hours of everything that transpired. So basically, if you go back, Trump came out and was talking about that the first day before we start, the one person that nobody's talking about, nobody's asking where he is and asking questions, as he's the one of the most important person, is Steve Wickoff. Where's Steve Wickoff? How come he's the guy that was in charge of, because I was that Steve Wickoff. I was the guy that was sent that unofficially behind the scenes in the shadow diplomacy to put pressure on Zelensky, to get dirt on the Bidens. But now Wickoff is that other shadow diplomacy negotiating on behalf of Trump. So you don't hear anything from him. That's the first key. You only hear from Hegseth and, people that Rubio that have never even sat down with Putin yet, have never met with anybody, are just basically figurines coming out and giving the media ploy. So then we take it back. Trump came out and started saying, if you recall, 72 hours ago, that he's, going back and forth. First, he made a tweet that Tehran needs to evacuate. We're about to, hit them. Then he came out and said that, we're close to, maybe some sort of a deal. He was going back and forth. And then he came out and said, I'm giving him 2 weeks. I'm giving him this famous 2 weeks, and I even called him 2 week Donnie 2 weeks. You know what I'm saying to you? Because everything comes with 2 weeks. So gives him 2 weeks. But when he did that, I actually posted literally 8 hours later saying he's going to strike within 48 hours or 24 hours. I don't remember what I posted, because my sources, where they were telling me, it was all a setup. Basically, he wanted to strike earlier. He was being held up by Wickoff, because Wickoff was basically, because what was happening behind the scenes, and the New York Times just confirmed it, is Iran was moving some of their nuclear facilities, because Trump, told them where he was going to strike. So they were moving certain stuff, and I had Malcolm Nance talk about all of the ways they were doing it. So long story short, then all of a sudden Trump strikes, doesn't wait 2 weeks, strikes within that 24, 48 hours, comes out, announces it, says we did a beautiful hit, and all of a sudden we're starting to hear reports from the community agency that, wait a second, it doesn't look like you didn't destroy it, you didn't obliterate it. You're actually, we're having reports that they moved their nuclear weapons. So while this is going on, nobody's reporting on that the Ayatollah sends a personal letter through his emissary to Putin. He flies there, meets with Putin, gives the personal letter, and demands and asks, because one of my sources very close to the people that were in the room, where demands and asks for Russia to interfere and get more involved, get stronger, give him more military support, and this is where Putin masterminded this whole play and played it right, because right now, what nobody's talking about is Putin is bombarding Ukraine. He's good. The bombardment haven't stopped. It's becoming even worse and worse every day. And Trump has stopped all military aid, all help, because of this war that's going on in the Middle East. The European allies also stopped. My sources was next to Zelensky are telling me that everybody's went back. Ukraine's completely on their own. Exactly what Putin is doing, because this is what he needs to do. While everything is distracted in the going on, he's actually taking over and trying to take over Ukraine. So Trump comes out and says it's a great hit. What happens while they're meeting in Moscow? My sources says that Putin convinced the Ayatollah to do a symbolic hit where everybody wins. You guys still keep parts of your uranium and the stuff that you moved, because now it's even worse, guys. Because think about it. Because now Trump's trying to change the narrative and say that he destroyed all their nuclear weapons.
He did.
Yeah.
But if he didn't, now it's worse, because now they'll be able to start doing these nuclear weapons without us or anybody knowing, because Trump's trying to change the narrative. So that's the first thing. Second thing, in the propaganda world, which you guys know great, Iran is going to use these strikes, and the way they made them is that they were big, they were super, that they attacked the evil America. So they're going to use it as they struck back in their population and in their world. But here's the key: is the one that they can't control is Bibi Netanyahu, because Bibi Netanyahu has his own intentions and has his own, beliefs and his own ways that he's been manipulating Trump and using this whole thing that's been going on. And that's where it came to a clash today, because just think about it, right after the Trump hitting Iran. Iran then comes out, does the symbolic hit, which they notified the United States 2 hours prior, and Qatar 3 hours prior to that, telling him that this is all symbolic, that, they come out with a statement saying that we just sent enough missiles as America sent on us. So when you put this all together, and then all of a sudden Trump, a few hours later, comes out and says, that was a weak hit, they're weak, but now we have a peace deal. We have a peace deal, and he goes off on announcing something that both sides didn't know what the hell is going on. They keep hitting each other, and what's it called? And today you saw it come to a clash where he lost it and basically came out and
Drop the F-bomb. Drop the F. Lev, if you hear those dogs, is because Olivia is such a professional.
I have it too.
I was like, is that Duke or is that?
Yeah, because Olivia's dogs, the Lev's got dogs, Olivia's got dogs. Even the dogs realize we're in a cluster F. But no, Lev, thank you for joining. I'm respectful of both of your times. And Olivia, I know I wanted to keep you only for 30 minutes, but I'll give you both the final word. here. And for the 2,000 people watching, we started around 12 o'clock. I'm going to have this up. Olivia and Lev are going to have this up also on their Substacks in an hour. Strongly recommend going back, watching the full conversation because Olivia drops a lot of gems. And Olivia also, in particular, and Olivia and Lev, they know this MAGA world. And Olivia took a lot of hits the past week because she came out against this war, correctly called it for a cluster F. And a lot of the folks who are rhinos are like, no, but Donald Trump, even though he's incompetent on everything else, on this we'll trust him with potential World War III. And she goes, nope, nope, you're not really paying attention to the blowback and the long tail of it. And the long tail of it, forget the long tail of it, the short tail of it. Because as Lev said right now, folks, both countries, yeah, ceasefire. Donald Trump has no control over this, and he got so frustrated that he dropped the F-bomb, which shows you that a man is not under control. And then you also have Russia that has a part in this. You also have different countries that are going to maneuver and play the game to strengthen themselves. You have Ukraine being bombed. You have Gaza being decimated, right? Folks, you have to keep multiple eyes on the balls. And as Lev said, we also have ICE, military, and National Guard terrorizing Americans, immigrants, and citizens in America right now. And you have the world's worst, most incompetent people in leadership. Kash Patel, FBI Director Don Bongino, Deputy Director Sebastian Gorka, Thomas Fugate, 22-year-old, head of countering violent extremism. Folks, this is where we're at right now. Tulsi Gabbard, head of DNI, and he doesn't even listen to Tulsi Gabbard, throws her under the bus, says, I don't believe her, which means, from what we know, his intelligence is Netanyahu, his vibes, and Fox News. So we're still in it, folks. And
Yeah.
the final word I want to give to you, Olivia, and then Lev, is the way out, what people should expect. And because we're still living in the trauma and aftermath of the war on terror, we know that enough people speak out. If enough people speak out, we could perhaps stop this and pivot it towards some sanity. So what is that final word that you want to tell people? What should we be amplifying? What should people be saying? What should people be calling up and telling their congressmen, Democrats and Republicans, about this current moment?
Yeah, I mean, I would say like just stick to the facts. Right? I mean, because it's all laid out there, and all we are pointing out is just facts. It's the truth about what's happened here, how it's developed, and what's going on. I also think that one thing that I would say, it'll be interesting to see what happens in the dynamics at this NATO summit because Trump is there now. And it will be very interesting to see how European allies react, the discussions had there, how Trump reacts. I mean, let's be honest, he was going into this thinking that he would be able to claim victory. He was going to walk in, you know, the big dog in the room, proud of his successes and what he'd done for the world and made the world a safer place. That I don't think is playing out the way they had like orchestrated and planned this. So I think that is one thing that I'm paying attention to is like, what are the statements made during this? What happens there? How these people are communicating and what they're saying. What do you think, Lev?
I couldn't say it better myself, Olivia. And I just want to say this. I said, for the Democratic Party, my message is unity. Right now, we need to put all partisans aside. We need to put all politics aside. We need to put all policies aside on both sides. We need to save our democracy, and we need all to be American citizens and join against the evil force, basically. And the one thing I want to say is we need more support for people like Olivia, people like myself, people that have been in that party, have been in that MAGA world, that knows what they are. They know how they act. They've sat in on the meetings. And stop listening to a lot of the pundits that 20 years ago are just giving their opinions. And with all due respect, it's not about that, because right now we need to be able to say, and the number one thing is unity, unity, unity. We need somebody to step it up in the Democratic Party to grab like the guys like Thomas Massey, grab guys like Don Bacon, grab guys like Fitzpatrick. There's people out there. I mean, we need 5-6 men or brave men or women out there in the Congress to be able to stand with the Democrats. And again, nobody's saying change party. Nobody's talking about becoming Democrats or Republicans. We'll get to that later. But if we don't do this now, and if we don't act now, we might not see 2026. We might not see 2028, because what Donald Trump is doing, like I said, he's following in the footsteps of his master, Vladimir Putin, and he's using the steps and he's bringing it here to the United States. And when people say, are we close to a constitutional crisis, I say, folks, we're living in a constitutional crisis.
It's already happening.
We're living in already an authoritarian country. We're already having people that are being taken off the streets with masked men, with no guard, and not even immigrants, American citizens. We have armed federal, military in Los Angeles. We have, right now, the Fox starting this whole Muslim thing, saying under Biden that there was 700, terror cells that came into here that are going to now. This is all part of NATO, part of the immigration. So Tom Homan's going to come out and say, now we're going to target not only Central America, we're going to go after all the Muslims. I mean, this is part of Project 2025. And that's why we need to wake up. We need to stand up. We need to unite together. We need to support each other and stop the division and to unite against Donald Trump. And that's the only way we're going to win this.
And this is why we need an anti-war party, folks. And the fact that you'd have me agreeing with Thomas Massie and then you have AOC and Ro Khanna joining Thomas Massie. But Jeffries just brushed it off yesterday, which is why I think we need new leadership. If this leadership is not willing to meet the moment, and they're not willing to confront what I believe, and I agree with Olivia, I've talked to her before, is an authoritarian threat, because I believe MAGA is a right-wing authoritarian movement. And I have said before, and I talked to Olivia about this, and Lev, I could quickly get you the last thing is I believe that Donald Trump, if he gets desperate, what he's going to do is he's setting up martial law. What he's going to say, there's an emergency, there's a threat from within. Folks, it's the invaders, it's the Muslims, it's the Iranians, it's the Cubans, it's the Mexicans, it's the El Salvadorans, it's the transgender. I am the commander-in-chief, and the power vested in me, and the Supreme Court tells me that it's my job to protect America. So guess what? Don't worry, we'll have elections. But for right now, martial law, until I could get the threat, the enemy from within under control, we'll punt the elections. But trust me, we'll bring the elections back. This is where I think it's headed. I've asked Olivia this. Lev, real quick, do you agree with me?
I couldn't have said it better myself, Wajid. That is perfectly said. That's what I've been screaming at the top of my lungs. I know this man very well, and what I'm hearing from inside, this is exactly what's being laid right now. That's why because you got just simple fact, remember him, he cares about the polls. He cares about the money. He cares about, and now he doesn't care all of a sudden because he's planning it. He's not planning to give us an elections in 2026. He knows. That's why he's going after the message. That's why he's doing such, blatant stuff. That's why it's important what you guys are talking about here. I agree with both of you that we need leadership. We need somebody set up, and we need to act now, because otherwise we might not see 2026.
Thank you both. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Two things that you brought to mind. And I don't want to freak you out, because here I go. 2 nights ago, the fact that you just said that, this is so funny. I thought my husband was going to kill me. So I'm sharing a little bit of inside baseball in my family on how things work here. Lev has met my husband along the way. And I sat up. We'd gone to sleep, by the way. We were going to sleep. Dogs were asleep. The whole family was asleep. And it was like 1:30 in the morning. And I literally sat up in bed. And I was like, how did I miss this? And he was like, what? Like, he's thinking like, oh, we're dog sitting. And he was like, what, the dog? Like, no. And I was like, this is all part of the plan. They're going to use this for martial law. They're going to set this up. They're going to continue to use this. They're going to build a case of this. Now they're going to use this. I literally said that to him. And he just kind of looked at me and nodded. And but it bothered me that much why that it literally woke me up out of my sleep that I was thinking about this. And I was like, of course, this is how they all operate. Like, Stephen Miller's in the room planning this out. And two, the one thing I will say is that, like, we're talking about what can the Democrats do. And the one thing that I will caution is that don't let them back you into a corner on saying that, okay, these people just don't care about defending America. And so because you can be against this conflict and be anti-war and still be strong on defense. And I think that is something that maybe is an important thing for Democrats to sit down and figure out how you're going to message that to the American people. Because the one thing that I don't want is I don't want this MAGA movement, and the Republicans are very good at this, where they will back you in a corner and say, well, they just don't understand what it takes to secure our country, strong defense. Like, yes, you can believe in strong defense, but it means that you also believe in strong foreign policy. You believe in strong diplomacy. You believe in actual productive engagement. You just don't believe that you can unilaterally, without congressional approval or discussion, bomb a country out of the blue and just shrug it off like it's another day. And so I would say, like, it's okay to be patriotic in that way. And I say that because I think sometimes the right takes that and runs with it.
Well, not
Right.
sometimes, always. And this is why we have ICE agents and the National Guard and the Marines terrorizing Americans, because the Democrats always see the ground on the messaging and say, oh, yeah, we're going to show you we're strong on immigration. We'll just agree with everything that you say, right? And we won't forcefully come out based on our values and convictions and stand up for immigrant rights. And voila, you see Democrats coming out and voting with Republicans for the Lake and Riley Act. And you see the normalization of going after pro-Palestinian activists like Mahmoud Khalil, who thank God was released, right? Zero crimes, folks. And then you
Yeah.
see, you see them being quiet for the past year and a half. But folks, look, what I've always said, fascists come after everyone. First, they came after the transgender community. They used it as a Trojan horse. Then they came after undocumented. People kept quiet. Then they came after legal immigrants, students. Now they're coming after universities. Now they're coming after critics. And as you know, Olivia, and as you know, Lev, they go after Republicans as well. I give you Mike Pence running for his life on January 6th, 2021. You are not more white, conservative, and Christian than Mike Pence, folks. They went after Lev. Olivia, they're going after Chris Krebs. Chris Krebs, a Republican whose job was, hey, you told me to to figure out who won the election. I did my job. Donald Trump lost the election. And now Donald Trump signed an executive order investigating him for treason. So if they go after these white conservative Christians, do you think you're safe? And if you think I'm being an alarmist and Lev's being an alarmist, Olivia's being an alarmist, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I go off the facts. I remember 2018, 2019, I said based on Donald Trump, I take him literally and seriously, his statements, his actions. He's not going to leave peacefully. And guess what happened? He didn't leave peacefully. And then they said, well, Marjorie Taylor Greene, she's a nut. And I said, nope, she's going to be the future of the party. And voila, she's the future of the party. Oh, they're going to normalize under Trump. Nope. 80% of Republican voters believe the big lie, folks. So see with your eyes and hear with your own ears. Believe the evidence that you're seeing. This dude said in October, right before he was elected, I will unleash the National Guard and the military against the quote enemy from within. And now, as Lev said and Olivia said, we have the National Guard and military and Marines terrorizing U.S. citizens. And now the Supreme Court said yesterday, one of the most horrific rulings, one of the most shameful rulings, that the Trump administration can literally just kidnap immigrants and rendition them to foreign prison sites. I'm talking about Sudan, El Salvador, literally no due process. And the Supreme Court, for whatever reason, said, yeah, the president could do that. So good luck, folks. If you think we're crazy, just open your eyes. But there's more of us than there are of them. Let me repeat this. There's more of us than there are of them. We have the numbers. Donald Trump has never cracked 50%. According to the latest Quinnipiac poll, he's at 38%. 85% of people are against this war, which is just a stunning number that I never thought I'd see.
Yeah.
There's more of us. We see the No Kings rally. And I'll say even in LA, based upon the grassroots leadership and protest, LA Dodgers responded to that and blocked ICE from coming to Dodger Stadium. And LA Dodgers then gave $1 million to immigration rights. So, as Lev was saying, these polls matter, folks. Corporations are moving away from the law firms that bent the knee to Trump because they realize it's toxic. Costco's foot traffic has gone up. Target's foot traffic has gone down. And the midterms are around the corner. There's still a chance to save our democracy. People like Olivia and Lev, they're doing the good deeds, even though they're past, they're with MAGA, they turned. And I always say I believe in an off ramp and I believe in a redemption arc. And I really appreciate Olivia on this show saying, you know what, I was part and parcel of the neocons and the war on terror, and I saw it firsthand, and I saw the mistakes, and I acknowledge the mistakes, which is why I'm trying to not repeat the mistakes. It takes a lot of guts, folks. I've always said a lot of those people who are those neocon warhawks, they all failed up in life without ever apologizing. Olivia recognized it. She came out of the Trump administration in the first one. She's been on the right side. She's taken the arrows. Lev was the guy. He was the guy. And Donald Trump and MAGA turned on him. So I believe democracy, you want it's addition. Bring in all the people. You might not agree on everything, but if we agree on democracy and against authoritarianism, let's find a way to link arms. And you see us three right here. Before we leave, shamelessly promote yourself. Olivia first. How can people find you and share you and support you?
I'm here on Substack. I'm Olivia of Troye, and that's where you'll find me on social media too.
Lev, how can people support you and find you?
For me, it's most important. You here on Substack. That's where I'm at. Also, you could find me here, but support also independent journalism like Wajid, like Midas Touch, like my son Aaron Parnas, and listen to more like people like me and Olivia. Because trust us, we're here. We're risking it. A lot of people don't really understand that how we really risk a lot to come out here to give you the information and the truth that we've been inside. Because this is what it's important now. And right now, it's all about unity, one voice, one message to beat them, and this way, save our democracy. Thank you for having me, Wajid.
Thank you. The 2,500 people who joined, we're going to have this up in an hour. I strongly recommend listening to the entire conversation with transcripts. This is the left hook. I've kept everything for free, not because I'm an idiot, but because I'm a fool. There's no paywalls. You pay what you can. I believe that people should be informed because someone told me democracy dies in darkness. I wonder who said that. So give what money you can. If you can't, at least spread the good news. Be informed, be kind, be empathetic, and please, oh, please don't be a fascist. Lev, Olivia, keep up the good fight. Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thank you, babe.